Today, I'm going to give you my long-term, honest thoughts, opinion, and review of a rather divisive piece of tech that I've owned for quite a while now, and it's this guy. This is the Leica Q3 original version, not the newer 43mm version, but the 28mm version. Now, there is a lot to talk about with this Q3 camera. From its impressive build quality to the incredible photos that I feel it captures, I would honestly say that getting my hands on this camera really did help to bring the fun back into photography. But trust me, the Q3 is far from perfect, and obviously I think it goes without even saying that it's hard to even recommend this camera to 99% of people out there, just because of what it is. Now, before we jump into it, full disclosure, this review might be a little long-winded and a little bit all over the place, but considering the price of the Q3 and how long I've had it now, I really wanted to take the time to highlight every positive and every frustration that owning a Q3 may bring to you. But despite the flaws, despite the price, there is no denying that shooting on the Q3 is just so damn fun. It really does make you slow down a little bit when you're shooting though, and it just makes the end result, the end photo, feel so much more rewarding than it would with shooting with another camera, like a Sony or a Canon, for example. So, with all that being said, let me tell you about my experience, my long-term thoughts of the Q3. I waited nearly 6 months, but I was finally able to get my hands on my Q3 in July 2024 at the rather hefty price of 8,195 Canadian dollars before tax. Now, of course, as I said, the most obvious reason that I cannot recommend the Q3 to 99.9% of people out there is that price tag. The Q3 is so far from being a cheap or even affordable camera. And the scariest thing about purchasing one of these is that the price of the camera is not actually where the costs end in a lot of ways. Whether it's the accessories for the Q3 or even just the SD cards for the Q3, everything that is compatible or needed for this pricey camera also costs a lot. Now, if you're new to the channel or you just happen to miss it, several months ago I did put out a video where I highlighted the accessories and SD cards and all that stuff that I got for my Q3, so I will link that down in the description for you, and you should definitely check that out. But since we're talking accessories, let me just quickly go through why I had to buy some of these particular accessories for my Q3 right now. So the Q3, the body on this camera is stunning. It's so well built, so durable, just a really fantastic piece of equipment. And it's not all that large, especially if you remove the lens hood. See, not that bad. Fairly compact for a all-in-one camera like it is. And even after pretty much using it every single day since getting it, every button, every knob, every dial, every switch, everything still feels so well built, so solid, so premium. It really is so impressive to look and feel and use and touch this camera. But that beautiful construction on the Q3 might also be one of its biggest weaknesses, in my opinion too, at least for some people. So as you can see, I've got quite large hands, and the Q3 body is quite small and doesn't really have a good way of getting a hold on it. And in fact, I was terrified using this for the first little while because I didn't have a good solid grip on this $8,000+ camera. So that's why I purchased the Leica thumb grip accessory. Now, I didn't pay the full Leica retail price for it, but if you do get it from Leica directly, this thumb grip runs you over 300 Canadian dollars, which, while it is well built, this is an insane price for a little piece of metal that makes this camera actually holdable for somebody with a large hand. It's crazy. Now, luckily, Leica does include a rather lovely leather camera strap with the Q3, which you can wrap around your hand or wrist. That does help you get a little bit of a better grip on it and releases some fatigue over a long time shooting. However, if you want to get something a little bit nicer, more higher end, like a rope strap, those are several $100s too. So Leica is not cheap. They're basically the Apple of the camera world, if you want to make that comparison. And similarly, you want to be investing in fast, powerful storage for the Q3 if you're going to get one of these cameras. A single raw photo out of the Q3 60 megapixel full frame sensor can easily push 70 megabytes a piece. So if you put slow memory, slow SD card in this camera, you are in for a really sloppy shooting experience. So if you're going to shoot professionally with a Q3, or you want to just have an archive of all your SD cards so you don't lose anything over the long run, you're going to want to invest in a solid storage product for those SD cards. And that's where the sponsor of today's video, Kiwi Photos, comes in. I've been using their memory card case to store all of my memory cards when I'm on the go or when they're not in use, and it's made card management just so much easier. With room for up to 132 memory cards in this case, it's IP67 waterproof and shock resistant, all while being compact enough to fit in your camera bag when you're on the go. For just $20 US, it's by far one of the most affordable and sturdy SD card cases I've ever used, and definitely worth taking a look at yourself, especially if you need a better way to store and manage all of your own SD cards. You can find Kiwi Photo's case that I've been using linked right down at the top of the video description. Thanks to Kiwi Photos for sponsoring this video and for sending this case over for me to check out and use. Really big fan of this product. Now back to the Q3. So let's move on from the expenses and the accessories that you're gonna want for your Q3, and let's talk about the rest of the Q3, how it's built, how it's designed, how it works. Functionally speaking, just about everything else that you're gonna find on the Q3 is just so well implemented. It does have a flip out touchscreen on the back that articulates up and down. I do wish it also tilted out like most of these other cameras out there today do, but the majority of the time when I'm shooting, it's not a major issue. But if you want to shoot yourself with a Q3, you are going to be out of luck. There's also a great 5.76 million dot EVF electronic viewfinder on the back of the Q3, which for me is just the best way to shoot and dial in when you're pulling manual focus. Now, in terms of navigating the Q3's menu system and changing from photo to video mode, which the Q3 does video, we'll talk about that in a moment. While I don't find the screen super responsive to inputs, it is very easy to navigate. The menu structure is clean, simple, well laid out, mostly intuitive. So you can definitely pick it up and get a hold on it pretty quickly. But if you're coming from something like a Sony, like I also have a Sony a6700, when you go back and forth between the two devices, you're definitely going to notice the speed difference as you use the menu system. It's not really taking away from the overall experience of shooting on the Q3, but again, the whole camera overall just slows you down a little bit, makes you take a little bit more time and thought when you're shooting with it. The only big issue I have with the EVF and the touchscreen, because again, generally speaking, they are good, is that when you half press the shutter down to lock focus, when you're in autofocus mode, it dims. Both the screen and the EVF dim before you take the shot. This makes it extremely difficult to know if you've actually locked in the focus, the color, the lighting, everything that you want. You can't really tell anymore. And I don't know why this is the case only when shooting in autofocus. It doesn't happen when you use manual focus. So my workaround in these cases is I just try to shoot a few photos in succession just to make sure that I get one that is exactly what I was looking for. This is one of those things that I hope Leica will address and resolve at some point with a software update down the road, which they have been very good about pushing over-the-air updates through the companion iPhone and iPad app, which I have installed on my devices. It allows you to manage your photos, transfer them back and forth completely wirelessly through Bluetooth, and update the camera as well through the software. So I hope they take this to note and they address this in the future, because it just doesn't make any sense why they do this, and it just makes it so much more difficult than need be to shoot using autofocus. Now let's talk about the lens on the Q3, because it is just so good, in my opinion. It's a Summilux f1.7 28mm lens with image stabilization, and it's just so tactile and fun to actually use. All the adjustments on it, whether you're changing aperture to manual focusing through the manual focus ring, everything's so smooth and just a true joy to work. Even after all these months, like I said, it just feels brand new. It's so smooth, so linear. And I also love the integrated macro mode, which allows you to get really nice close-up macro shots with a minimum focus distance of just 17 centimeters to the subject. Having it all in one like this and being able to switch so quickly from shooting normally to macro is just a chef's kiss. The lens is just so well constructed. And as I mentioned earlier, it's mated to that 60 megapixel full frame sensor on the Q3's body, and it produces, in my opinion, just truly fantastic photos. And it can do that in a massive range of lighting conditions. It has an ISO range from 50 all the way to 100,000. So it does a fantastic job even in low light, which makes it incredibly versatile. So if you can stomach taking your $8,000+ camera out with you everywhere that you go, this camera can get the shot in just about any situation you might find yourself in. Now, I did bring up the autofocus on the Q3 earlier, and generally, it's not all that great in my opinion. If you're shooting portraits, you're gonna be totally fine. The Q3 can absolutely handle portraits or landscapes or street photography, no problem. But it falls short, again, of those other modern camera systems like Sony Canon, Nikon, etc., and the autofocus implementations that they have currently in their software. For example, the Q3 simply can't figure out, with using autofocus, how to get my dog's whole face in focus. It'll pull focus on her eyes or her nose or her ears, but never the whole face. And again, my A6700 from Sony has an animal mode that can absolutely do this instantaneously. Now, luckily, manual focus is just so solid, and the zoom preview that the EVF and the screen on the Q3 give you when you activate the manual focus ring brings in so you can lock in on your subject and pull perfect focus every single time. That is great. So it mitigates a lot of these edge cases where autofocus doesn't work. But again, if you're coming from a more modern system, you are going to have a little bit of a learning curve on your hands here. But all of that being said, all those grievances, those frustrations, whatever you want to call them, the heart and soul of the Q3 is the photos that it produces, and they are just excellent. There is no other way to describe the quality of the image that you are going to capture if you have your hands on a Leica Q3. The full frame sensor just captures so much detail, and it gives you so much room to work in post with your photos. And if you want to get tighter than the 28mm lens offers you, there is a crop to zoom function, and it simulates either a 35, 50, or 75mm zoom lens. Just know that these are digitally zooms. They permanently alter and crop in the photo when you change to those crop zoom modes, and it reduces your megapixel count, so it gives you less to work with down the road. Personally, I shoot everything in full 28mm, then I just go into Lightroom after the fact and I make the adjustments or crops as I want to. This gives me all the detail, all the quality, all the megapixels to work with, and if you want to zoom in on something, you absolutely can do that without any problem, and it looks completely fine. It looks great. I mean, just look at this image here. This crop that you're seeing was after zooming way in on the original photo. Here's the original. This is so much extra detail and room to work with. It just makes way more sense to do it this way. That's how I will continue to do my workflow on my Q3. And as I said very briefly before, the Q3 can shoot video. In fact, it can shoot up to 8K video in a number of different codecs. But when you're using it for video, honestly, the autofocus is slow and brutal and painful to work with. It takes ages to pull focus if it's going to do it at all. And yes, you can do it manually, but again, with the lack of a fully articulating screen, you have no way, if you're trying to shoot something yourself, whether or not it is in focus if you go manual. Autofocus really is the only way to do it using this kind of camera body, and yeah, it just really can't keep up with your movements. It's a great looking video clip, but it's just so unreliable. You definitely wouldn't be relying on this camera for video use. It's just nice to have. But for me, the Q3 is purely a photography camera. That's what it's built for. That's what it shines in, and that's what I use it for. So all said and done, rants over, frustrations aired. I really have enjoyed using the Q3. I've really enjoyed the privilege of being able to own one of these and shoot with it almost every single day. And it is a fantastic piece of kit, even if you don't want to buy one, which again, I don't think 99% of people should buy one or really can buy one for that matter. But if you're ever able to get your hands on one for a day, for a week, whatever the case might be, just go ahead and use it. Try it out. The images look great. You're going to be so impressed with how much detail and quality, how much light the sensor can capture. Everything about the images is just going to impress you. And yes, there is that Leica look, which I know is really just the way that the sensor reproduces color. You can absolutely do that in post with any other camera, but the photos just straight out of camera, the raw images just look so good. And if you really truly want to edit any of them, the 60 megapixel full frame sensor, going down to f1.7 on that lens just gives you so much to work with after the fact. It's a joy to use. Would I rely on it as my daily shooter for fast action or shooting wildlife or something like that? Probably not. It does require you to go a little bit slower. The menus are a little bit slower. Dialing the focus, pulling focus is a little bit slower than on other camera systems out there. But if you're shooting portraits, if you're somewhere where you can just take that extra moment to slow down and get the shot perfectly, line up everything, dial it in, the Q3 is a true joy. And that's where it shines. That's where the Q3 is the best suited to be. But again, that price is very prohibiting, and nowadays the Q3 is not the only kit on the block that can do this kind of thing. You have the likes of Sigma with the BF, which is very, very similar in not just aesthetic, but also functionality to the Q3, hitting the scene very soon. And Fujifilm even just put out their new GFX 100 RF, which again, very similar, and similar in terms of price too. So with all that being said, my honest opinion is you don't need to buy a Q3. If you want a hybrid camera that can do video and photo, it's not for you. If you want a camera that can shoot 1,000 frames a second, it's not for you. If you want to shoot action photography or zoom in to 100 millimeters, it's not for you. And if you want a camera to vlog with or take selfies with, again, not for you. But for other people, this is going to be a fantastic camera. And to me, it's a joy and privilege to use every day. And I really, truly have a lot of fun doing that. So let me know what you guys think. Let's have a conversation, as always, down in the comments below. Let me know your thoughts. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you guys again soon in the next video.